Greetings, I'm John Spirit. We've got a lot of research to do to get to vrauks, and welcome to modded Factorio Supershorts. One of the first things we need to be able to get is duralumin, which requires us to produce a smelter, the first machine that requires simple circuit boards. But for that we need titanium. Titanium ore requires acetylene to mine. How could I not have guessed? We're technically using our system over on the right here to capacity. Just for fun, I've decided to put down all the fluid mining drills I can, which right now is only 5, but really should be 18. Which means I need 9 acetylene per second. Wow, that only requires precisely 1 destructive distillation column to provide all the requisite coke. Isn't that amazing? On the other truly unfortunate hand, however... Wait, never mind, I thought there was a problem and then there wasn't. You see, I was hoping to extract some of this extra carbon dioxide we have, and use it for the moss farm that we're going to need, to power PyScience 1, which happens to be our current next goal. Where is that here? It's right here, look at that. However, it turns out I can pull the nice silly trick that I used in my other system and turn all that lovely tar into some carbon dioxide, using the destructive distillation column, and just dump everything else, because I don't know what I'm going to do with it. We need a burner to throw this stuff away, because we don't need it. Unfortunately, that requires us to have PyScience. Sad. However, in wonderfully good news, this system will provide us with precisely enough syngas to power my PyScience system as well, with all that glass I need. Amazing! In other convenient news, I already have 2 of the 3 destructive distillation columns I need sitting right here. So all that coke is going to get dumped right out into these classic high-pressure furnaces to produce lime, and calcium carbide, and acetylene, and slake lime is going to get sinkholed, and limestone is going to come from the soil extractor, and everything's going to be tasty. Meanwhile, coal gas is going to pop out of these destructive distillation columns and turn into syngas, ash, and tar. All the tar from these destructive distillation columns and these gasifiers will join up in this gasifier to make more coal gas. However, that's actually sort of a last-minute thing. We're actually going to make use of an overflow valve. Why? Because some of our tar is going to be turned into carbon dioxide, using, however, an underflow valve. An underflow valve will only allow the carbon dioxide out of this destructive distillation column when the carbon dioxide from the line is insufficient to support the things that I'm going to need it to support, which is some things. The aromatics and flue gas, which currently have no use to me, will be gas vented, along with the flue gas down at this tar factory. Another underflow valve will restrict the addition of carbon dioxide to this gasifier system from this tar. I'll explain what's happening with all of these gases soon. So, in order to keep these destructive distillation columns running constantly, we need to make sure all of our coal gas is constantly being used. All of our coal gas will constantly be used by slightly above 2 gasifiers. Here are 3 gasifiers. However, we are also producing a lot of tar. Now, if we wanted to run 3 gasifiers at full speed, which we don't need to do, we can turn tar into coal gas. But we don't want the coal gas from this gasifier. We're going to have a ton of tar, and if all that tar goes to this gasifier, we get a ton of coal gas, and that coal gas might be too much for these 3 gasifiers. Which would mean that some of the coal gas from these destructive distillation columns would be deprioritized over the coal gas from this gasifier, unless we use an underflow valve, which will only allow coal gas into the gasifier system once there is less coal gas than 80% in the pipes. But tar is only going to this gasifier as a second resort. The first use of tar is actually to make carbon dioxide. However, even that carbon dioxide is not fully necessary, because we only need about 100 of the carbon dioxide that's going to come from this destructive distillation column, whereas we're getting like 795, which is a lot, obviously. Anyway, after all the tar is used in the destructive distillation column, which is not going to be a lot of tar, the rest of the tar will go to the gasifier, and then we'll use 1 more overflow valve into a sinkhole, because when in doubt, just throw it all away. Now, right now, we're not going to be using any of this syngas, but the question is whether we should put the gas vent on the overflow gas vent on the syngas or on the coal gas. You may say, put it on the syngas so that the coal gas doesn't constantly run. But if the syngas is constantly running, that's 3 whole items using like 517 kilowatts of power, which is, I don't know, it's a fair amount of power that would be constantly running. But if we just put the overflow valve and gas vent on the coal gas, sure, this gasifier will run more constantly, but it's only 1 gasifier compared to 3 gasifiers. So we are just going to pop a temporary coal gas vent here in case the syngas production is backed up, which it will be for most of the time right now. We'll dump the rich clay from this destructive distillation column into a chest where it belongs to die. Incidentally, we will not need this carbon dioxide until I set up my PyScience 1 system, which I'm definitely not doing today. So I'm going to turn the underflow valve so it doesn't work, and then just put a gas vent here for the carbon dioxide, and eventually I will actually turn the destructive distillation column on, but for now it will not be on. All that remains is for us to power all of our helpful friends, and then they will be working. But we also need like 13 more fluid mining drills, which is not easy considering how little iron I have at the moment, because I don't have a dedicated iron system because I am bad. In an unusual stroke of wisdom, it occurs to me that I could solve all of my iron problems at once and get my research going faster if I set up a dedicated automated science pack maker. Wouldn't that be useful? Why haven't I thought of that yet? Maybe then I wouldn't be clawing for every scrap of automation science pack I can get my hand on, and constantly refilling these assembly machines with things that they need. Just maybe. Firstly, however, we do have all of our fluid mining drills ready for titanium. Let's research splitters so we can use them on the fly whenever we want. That way I can direct coal around most of this system that I have here. There have been some mild hiccups, but my clever solution to those hiccups involves Bob's adjustable inserters, so not very clever. Although I'm sure the mod is incredibly cleverly designed. Anyway, I'm finally getting to make use of those curved, like, right arm. I love these. Okay, now that everyone is filled up with coal, I just need to provide acetylene. And with some mild pipe spaghetti, I now have acetylene hooked up to all these titanium miners as well. And now we got titanium ore moving into stone furnaces with coal. Look at all these I'm using so many splitters, and the reason I think I'm using so many splitters is because every splitter requires 5 simple circuit boards. What a terrible recipe for splitters! There is no better recipe for splitters. And you know what? The better splitters require the first splitters. And the better splitters require the second splitters. But the real problem is that there's precisely one recipe for simple circuit boards and requires all this stuff. Which means that if I want to use a number of splitters in any capacity, I may or may not need aggressive quantities of simple circuit boards. This is not fair. I'm going to complain to the developers. Okay, I successfully complained to the developers, but I also may or may not have talked myself out of my own complaint, so it's okay. I'm probably going to make so many circuit ones, like, per second that it will be irrelevant. The reason for this is that improved circuits require the original circuits to make. The good news is that with all this tasty titanium I've picked up, I can now make an alloy smelter if I wish. Where was I swear I had it. It was right here, which means I could make duralumin. The uses of this include creating an incubator, which I don't quite know what I need an incubator for, but probably something. Possibly nothing. Oh, generic Earth DNA samples. Yes, that seems important. Oops, I guess I do need an incubator after all. Now, duralumin requires aluminium, so I decided to place an overflow valve on the coal gas coming out of the destructive distillation column so I can feed it back to our friendly fluid mining drills. Now all I need to make a smelter is exorbitant quantities of iron. Also, like, some ceramic, apparently. Woo, I'm excited for another enormous building. Are you excited for another enormous building? I'm excited for another enormous building. And I'm gonna put it right here. Why? Because that gives me convenient access to the syngas. Yay, I finally get to use it. Now I'm making duralumin. How exciting. Now I need to make a decision which causes me great turmoil because I don't know why I even decided to think about it in the first place, and it is whether to use an editor to give me tiny copper and iron patches over here so I don't need to drag copper and iron all the way over here to an automation science system, or drag copper and iron all the way over here to an automation science system. My heart is telling me, yes, Jonan, do it, make the illicit patches. But my conscience is telling me that one day I'm going to want to use trains to distribute ores everywhere, and if I'm just allowing myself to put patches down wherever I want to, that'll set a bad precedent, and I won't use trains like I'm supposed to, which would be lame. It would be very lame. This is partly alleviated by the fact that my calculations for automation science packs determined that I only need 2 burner mining drills for iron and 1 burner mining drill for copper. However, in some ways, that feels even worse, because then I'm just dragging belts all the way across my Factorio system. However, there is a possibility to salvage this stupidity. I can probably just stick iron and copper on 1 belt, and then supply coal directly. You know what? Yes, that is exactly what I'm going to do because the iron, copper, and coal are right here. I have hereby done this. Observe 2 burner mining drills and 3 stone furnaces weirdly hooked up to this coal belts, and a copper furnace up here that is fueled by a copper miner down here, hooked up to the coal from the main circuit system, which gives me an iron copper belt. I've also brought stone up with this electric mining drill to this stone furnace making stone brick, and with the power of near inserters, I am plugging stone bricks onto this conveyor belt. While I work on this, I'm researching all the things I need for vrauks, so I've just researched biotechnology, and I guess now I'll research storage tanks. Why not? Anyway, rather than shove the stone bricks back onto the stone line, I decided to put them onto directly into an empty planter box crafter instead. In this mess, I am sticking wood from a wood processing unit into this empty planter box crafter, along with iron from an iron copper line, and coal from the coal line that I've made right here. Then, ash from this big old system over here comes down to a planter box creator, along with soil from a soil extractor. Most pie tanks require duralumin in some capacity, but there are some seemingly nice ones that only require lead. I wonder how big they are. I wonder if I can use them. That could be fun. I'm sure there are drawbacks in different ways. Now I'll research basic substrate, which only requires 50 automation science packs, which, until I have my automation science pack system done, is all I have. Never mind, I'm wrong, I have more than that. Whatever. Behold a slight revamp of my small part system. Instead of being a upward-facing triangle, it's a downward-facing triangle. With some silly spaghetti, I've brought the copper and iron to bear on all of these 3 assembling machines, which I will now hook up using mechanical inserters. Look at all that iron and copper going to all the irony and coppery places it needs to go. Now we've got everybody making small parts. Out of complete and total disinterest of bringing the native flora from all the way up here all the way down here, I mean, it's really not that bad, but I'm not going to do it right now anyway. I'm just going to put a chest here for native flora again, because I'm not very smart. And now, without further ado, I have 5 automation science packs per minute. Amazing! You may think, wow, Jonathan, that sounds pretty bad. Aren't there technologies with like 150 automation science packs required? Yes. But even those will only require 30 minutes to rack up the requisite automation science packs. And typically you're doing like a million billion other things during this mod that research can just run slowly in the background. You don't queue long things up, you research one thing at a time and you work based on that. At least, I hope. It is a fact that I need to make like 800 more automation science packs before I get vrauks done, which is a lot. And it'll take a whole 26 minutes to produce that much automation science. Sorry, that's incorrect. 160 minutes, which is just over 2 hours, which I feel like is longer than it'll take for me to make my system. But worst comes to worst, when I am almost done making my system and I am still waiting on things like vrauks, I will just speed up time. With basic substrate researched, I can now produce basic substrate, an element of PyScience, which only requires basically everything we've already done. Petri dishes and basic substrate and things like that. Wait, cellulose and moss. It looks like right now, though, it'll be in our best interest to research plastic bars so that I can make plastic because I'm going to need them for this gene lab thing. Man, there sure are a lot of random materials I need, but it's great. It's fine. I love it. I do. I really do. And honestly, my system up there is already set up for the syngas and aromatics. I just have to add a couple little things and everything will be fine. So yes, I will do this. This will be great. One more correction to my circuit system before I end the episode. We keep getting excess coke that clogs everything up, so I'm going to turn it into carbon dioxide that I will pump into these moss farms. This requires an output priority on the splitter, so coke first goes to the right and only goes to the left once it's backed up. Then I need a high-pressure furnace which will produce carbon dioxide and dump it into the moss system. However, I don't want coke to just constantly be used to make carbon dioxide. That is, which it will be doing if carbon dioxide is dumped into a pi gas vent. But the reason carbon dioxide is being pumped into a pi gas vent is because this system would produce too much carbon dioxide otherwise. So I'm going to make use of an underflow valve. This underflow valve will insert carbon dioxide from this destructive distillation column only if there is insufficient carbon dioxide in this pipe. But the gas vent is going to go on the top of the carbon dioxide with an overflow valve, so if too much carbon dioxide fills up this pipe and it's not going into the bottom pipes, then it'll get vented. All I need to do is plug coke into the carbon dioxide crater. And if even this clogs up, another output priority splitter will help dump coke carbon dioxide into a chest that I can use for powering other stuff in my factory, like, I don't know, furnaces. But that way, I'll never get coke clogging up in this area again. For now, however, that's it for today's episode. As always, if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear it. I hope you enjoyed!